Hi there, this is Dr. John Whitcomb talking about news and nutrition. Sleep is tied to cognitive decline. Now, we're pretty sure that once you have what we call Alzheimer's, you have pretty bad disrupted sleep as a pretty common symptom. But an awful lot of midlife adults have disrupted sleep or don't have enough sleep. And there's now new studies correlating that broken sleep or lack of sleep in midlife to cognitive decline much later. What's the mechanism for that? Well, I'm quite interested in that. About 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we started to learn about the glymphatic system. And the glymphatic system is what is basically your lymph system inside your brain. Now, I was trained that sleep is a time when your brain actually consolidates memories and organizes itself and rests. And we now know that that's actually not what happens. That may be what's going on, but functionally the core problem with sleep is that the brain accumulates gunk while you're awake. It accumulates breakdown products of being awake, of cognition. And every creature on this planet that has a brain has to sleep. And what happens when you sleep? That glymphatic system swells and reverses flow such that in effect sleep is your brain on flush. We can show that you lose about 15% of the volume in your brain and that fluids flow in a different direction through those lymph vessels attached to each neuron. What is it flushing? Well, one of the dramatic things that it's flushing, we know, for example, are beta amyloid, or at least not successfully flushing. And what we need sleep for is to, in fact, flush beta amyloid. And where does beta amyloid come from? Beta amyloid comes from a large protein called amyloid precursor protein, whose job is to export, among other things, excess iron and copper outside of your brain. Now, iron is a two-edged sword. It's absolutely critical you have enough iron for young women to make babies. But what happens when the human species gets past childbearing age and continues to accumulate iron? And if it's toxic inside your brain and your brain has to get rid of it, you're going to have a lot of beta amyloid. So if you, as Harvard did in their longevity project, examine blue zones around the world where there's very low Alzheimer's, you find multiple zones where the average rate of ferritin storage iron is only 20, quite low. So a good condition of the least cognitive decline correlates with low iron, and low iron correlates with better cognition down the road, less Alzheimer's. Well, sleep has to flush those beta amyloid fragments out that are created when you export excess iron out of your brain. So the function of sleep is to get rid of gunk. The question is, do you need to go through a certain amount of time cumulatively, or do you need to go through it all at once? And that I'm not sure we know. What we do know is you need enough. And anytime you've had a good night's sleep, don't you feel refreshed and delicious? And what I'm really fascinated now is that in fact there's now new studies showing that microRNAs being distributed in the exosomes can also predict cognitive decline associated with bad sleep. And if we can read those microRNAs, we can start getting a sense of what's really going on in your brain. And those microRNAs are delivering the messages to create peptides. Those peptides are small proteins that act as signaling messages. So I think we're going to have a bright new future in which those peptides might provide us with the signals that help us get a good night's sleep. In the meantime, we all know what's called sleep hygiene. Getting a good night's sleep involves making a habit, teaching your brain to follow a pattern, repeating that pattern, sticking to it, go to bed at the same time, turn off bright lights, get the light out of your bedroom, keep it cool, don't eat a huge meal, don't eat for 3 hours before going to bed. All of those things count. Maybe taking some melatonin at bedtime. Isn't that interesting stuff? In the meantime, try to make a habit of getting a good night's sleep. This is Dr. John Whitcomb with News and Nutrition saying cognitive decline is not getting enough sleep.